Thanks for being with us today on Transit Unplugged, the world's leading transit executive podcast. And today, I'm excited to have with us as our guest, Professor Niels van Oort. Niels is an associate professor of public transport and shared mobility at Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands and is co-director of the Smart Public Transport Lab. He's been involved in public transport projects and research for over 20 years in both academia and practice. Before his full-time position at the University in Delft, he worked as a strategic transit planner and a senior consultant. He's always been involved in research and practice. I got to meet him in person recently when I was in Melbourne, and he was doing a project along with Monash University, Dr. Graham Curry, and they had a game going on there with transit planners and students. We'll tell you about that game on today's podcast. It's fantastic. You can see it in the episode of Transit Unplugged TV. But what we focus on today is light rail and bus rapid transit. He wrote some books on this subject. We talk about the lessons we've learned. Where does light rail work better? Where does bus rapid transit work better? And some Dutch lessons that are integration with shared bicycles and micromobility and what we look for next in the public transportation industry. It's a great interview with Dr. Niels van Oort. I hope you enjoy it. Niels van Oort from the Netherlands is with us today. Niels, thanks for being with us on the show.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks for having me here, Paul.
We were together in Melbourne, actually, a few months ago, before the end of 2024, where I met you for the first time, Niels, and we were doing a big event. Tell us what we were doing there with the game and all that. What was going on?
Yeah, we were indeed in Melbourne with Professor Graham Curry, and we were actually giving a training course for the training course in public transport for young professionals and researchers. And when we met, we were actually doing this serious game, Finding the Optimal Mix, which is a game we developed over the last years to enable people in a playful way to deal actually with serious issues, namely transportation planning, to find the optimal mix. What modes do contribute to which specific societal goals, like effective mobility, but also the environment, equity, all these goals we are discussing all day about. And in this card game, we give the players the challenge actually to find the optimal mix of modes. We have, of course, classic modes, bus, tram, metro, cars, bicycles, but we also see a lot of new modes arriving on our streets, like the shared micromobility, transport network companies, on-demand services, etc. So it's quite a puzzle actually to match those modes to our societal goals, and that's what this game is actually trying to show and to learners.
I should get that for my class. You know, you and I are both teaching. I think you do more than I do, but I'm teaching one class at Villanova University outside of Philadelphia. It's to environmental engineering students who are master's level students. And that's the homework I'm giving them each week. And that's what our term paper is on. It's about develop the proper mix of modes for a specific city and tell us why and how much it would cost, the feasibility. That sounds like a game they could play and kind of come up with that, huh?
You're very welcome to host a game yourself, Paul. Actually, what we now are finalizing is to enable teachers and professionals all over the world to host their own session. So also you're very invited, Paul. In the show notes, we'll put the link to our website where you can actually order the cards and also get the instructions and videos to show how to host a game. And then I hope the game will be played all over the world with all these new young people entering the world of public transport and transport.
Yeah, you and I were just talking about that before we came on the air here, and that is both of us are very interested in, encouraging young people in their 20s who are just in college, maybe still or just coming out, to consider the public transportation sector for their employment. Talk about that and why that's so important.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And it's also one of my motivations why I'm excited about teaching. I teach at Delft University, both at the undergraduate and also at the graduate level. And also, as I said, as we met in Melbourne, we provide the trainings for young professionals and researchers. And I think we have a great sector as public transport, but we also face many challenges, I think. And we need new, young, bright people actually to help us deal with these challenges. And also to make use of all the new developments, the technical developments like AI, like autonomous vehicles, all these new opportunities. We need new, bright people actually to implement them to help us to optimize public transport being a serious mode to consider in our choice behavior.
Yeah. Now let's talk about where you live and where you work and all that. Tell us about the Netherlands, what city you're at, what type of public transportation you have there. I've got some friends that have been to the Netherlands recently, and they told me the transportation system in Amsterdam was just fantastic. Valerie Nielsen, who heads up the Transportation Planning Agency in West Palm Beach, and her husband, Jaime Quadra, they told me it was just fantastic. So talk to me about it.
Yes. Yeah, it's nice to hear that people are excited about our transit systems. I think in an international benchmark, we're doing quite well. I think we have high frequent systems. You can almost reach every place in the Netherlands by public transport. And also, I think what most people know, we are a cycling paradise. There's bicycles all over the place. And especially the connection of cycling for the short distances and public transport for the long distance enables everyone to visit every place independent of the cars. Of course, there's plenty of cars as well. It's interesting that you say that you like the public transport in the Netherlands, at least your friend was, because many people in the Netherlands like to complain about our level of service, to be honest. And I must say that especially after COVID, there's some reasons to complain. We are challenged by lack of passengers, lack of funds, and also labor shortage is a serious issue. However, I think in an international benchmark, we have a very high level public transport service in the Netherlands, in our cities. We have a national train network operating very high frequent and fast. We have local trams and metros and buses, and we have regional long distance buses as well. And it's all well connected to our favorite mode, maybe being the bicycle, which I think should be the best friend of every public transport system, providing smooth first and last mile opportunities.
That's great. And placed where the Netherlands is, for people in America who sometimes are geographically challenged, you're not part of the Nordic states of Sweden, Finland, and whatever up there, right?
No, that's true. That's in our perspective quite far away. But I am aware that distances are a bit different in perspective in the Netherlands than in your country, Paul. No worries. We are a small country. We're also a flat country, by the way. That's also why cycling is very convenient.
Ah, okay.
But our capital is Amsterdam, which I think is a famous place and a nice place to go from. And the Netherlands is about 70 million people. We're located to neighboring countries, Germany on the east and Belgium on the south. I'm in The Hague, which is the third biggest city of our country. And it's actually the place where our king and queen live. And also the parliament is located in our city.
And isn't that where the World Court or something is in The Hague?
Yes, there are the international courts, all that kind of things are located in The Hague, indeed.
That's interesting. Is that where all the Nazi trials took place and all that stuff afterwards, or was that was Nuremberg? Right, it was a different place.
It was in Germany, indeed.
Yeah.
Will be the NATO summit will be here soon in
okay.
June.
Is that where NATO headquarters is?
I'm not sure about the headquarters, but
okay.
At least the summit will be here soon. So that will be quite an operation with all the world leaders joining, and all the roads will be closed. All police will be here. So
you're going to love that. Huh?
We'll see what will happen in June.
Yeah, that's great. Well, listen, that's very interesting about your country. And what language do you speak there, by the way? Is it Dutch?
Yes, it's Dutch, and that's.
So say something to me in Dutch. What would you say? We're talking in the afternoon, my time, evening, your time. You're 6 hours ahead of us on the East Coast, right? So
indeed. So it's evening here, but I would like to wish you a good afternoon. So goedemiddag, Paul. Hoe gaat het met je?
What's that mean?
How are you doing?
Very good. All right, great. Well, I'm doing great. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come right back, I'm going to talk to you about 2 books you've written, one on light rail and one on bus rapid transit, which is fast taking hold here in the United States, right after this word. Great to have with us on the Transit Unplugged podcast today, Rebecca Klein and Keith Scott, some of the best communicators I know. And today they're going to share with us how to approach mentorship. Thank you both for being on the program today.
Thank you.
Yeah. I've got a good friend who is on the podcast today who is focused on mentorship and kindness and leadership. His name is Mike Bismeyer, and he always is talking about the importance of mentorship. How important is that in the workplace these days?
Mentorship and paying it forward is everything. Every single one of us can probably think back to that one person who spoke up for us, who made an introduction or a connection that got us where we are today.
And mentorship is important because the number of people that are leaving the workforce that have amazing skills and institutional knowledge are going away. It's more crucial now than ever to make that type of connection. And unfortunately, a lot of folks starting out and through COVID lost a lot of those skills to communicate and ask those questions. And so it's a big issue, and it's really important to crank up mentorship again in America because it's fallen apart a little bit.
And how do you get started? What do you do? How do you lead into this?
As a mentor, listen. Look out for people who are working hard, have leadership potential, but aren't sure where to go. Ask them questions, listen to their story, and then figure out if there might be a role for you to mentor them. If you're the mentee, if you want advice from someone, the biggest step is the one people don't do. Ask. A lot of people would be happy to be your mentor, but if you don't ask, you lose the opportunity.
Also, this whole role of mentorship, a lot of times the mentors, they preach, they don't share, and they dictate, and nobody wants to be told what to do. What people want is to hear about what happened and then take that information, pick what's useful, and throw away the rest. But when you preach, I don't know anybody that likes to be preached to.
That's good. Yeah. I grew up in church and my dad was the preacher. So I remember him snapping his fingers when I was looking through the hymnal in the back. Paul, come to the front. I didn't like being called out during the sermon, that's for sure.
Exactly.
So, but what's the best way? So let's say, I've had this happen to me multiple times, even just recently. Somebody said, would you be my mentor? And once in a while, I'll say yes, even though I don't have a ton of time. I'm happy to have a couple meetings with you. So I got it, right? You lead with listening, you share, don't preach. What kind of questions should I be asking of the mentee, or what questions should they be asking of me as the mentor?
In either direction, the questions need to be open-ended. Some of the best questions out there do not have a question mark. Tell me more about. And when you lead with curiosity, with a childlike curiosity, people will share a lot more.
And asking people, what's your next step? Dreaming big. What's happening 5, 10, 15 years down the line? And then being honest, what's holding you back? If this is what you want to do, why aren't you doing it? And what excuses are you giving yourself? Or are you just scared to take that leap?
That's interesting. And then what kind of feedback should you give?
Never sugarcoat. The worst thing you can do if you're mentoring somebody, let's say they send you their resume and you know it's not great, but you don't have time to give them some coaching, never sugarcoat it and say, oh, this looks fine, this looks great. Even if you don't have time to offer some suggestions, suggest some resources.
The problem is once you sugarcoat and that person gets a sense that they're better than they really are, then they will end up in a position that they can't really do. And then you have a problem.
Yes.
You've just advanced somebody where they really shouldn't be.
That's interesting. And then I guess, everyone's busy, but you got to be accessible, right?
You do. Once you make the offer to be someone's mentor, set the expectation of what that looks like. If the mentee starts texting you all day, every day, calling you constantly, let them know the plan. Create check-ins, and as long as both people understand what the mentorship looks like, it will go well.
And don't set up the times for them. Make them do it and send them to you, because then they take ownership. And we've learned this the hard way. You set up the times and then they're a no-show. If they don't follow up, that's their fault.
That's great. Well, Rebecca Klein, Keith Scott, thank you so much for sharing with us the importance and the how-to, some practical steps on mentorship.
Thank
you.
All right, we're back, and I'm with Niels van Oort, who is a professor and a global thinker on public transportation. And we're talking today about his books that he wrote. And one is on LRT, Light Rail Transit Systems, first edition. And then you have one on bus rapid transit. Talk to us about the experience as a transport planner and operator, consultant, and researcher in those fields.
Yes, thanks for that. Indeed, in 2018 we wrote a book about light rail transit. We'll put the link in the show notes if people are interested. Published by Elsevier, Light Rail Transit Systems, together with Rob van der Bel, Professor Rob van der Bel, and Bert Buckman, and also with Professor Rob van der Bel. We recently, last summer, we published a book about buses, BRT, and other modes of buses. It's still in Dutch only. Sorry for that, Paul, but we are still working on an English version because we think that both light rail, but also the bus deserves more attention in transit planning. And especially the bus, I think, is a bit underappreciated. There's a lot of potential, I would say, in these high-level bus services like bus rapid transit, and also like we call it in Europe, buses with high level of service, which is a sort of BOT light, you could say. That was one of the motivations actually to write a book about it. And it's not about promoting buses. It's not about promoting light rail. It's about finding the best mix of modes fitting to the needs of your city, to the societal objectives, and also to the needs of the passengers. And often that's a mix of modes, but sometimes a BOT fits better to your city or a light rail fits better to your city. And actually, we want to help that discussion by showing what are the pros and the cons, what are the challenges, and what are the lessons learned from all these great projects all over the world with light rail and also bus rapid transit.
Yeah, bus rapid transit's really, I mean, you hear about things like this in Latin America here, Curitiba and other places where they have.
Yes.
I went down to Sao Paulo last year for an episode of our show and got to see it there in action. But it really is taking hold here in the U.S. I was just out in Tucson, Arizona, and in Las Vegas, Nevada, and both cities are building BRT lines. I was in other cities this year. They're all working on high capacity, high frequency bus service. And as I mentioned, we feature you some on our Melbourne episode of the TV show and the game and all that we did there. But
Yes.
when I was the next episode, which was our largest, actually, a very, very highly watched episode from Brisbane, they've got an amazing metro system they're bringing online, kind of preparing for the Olympics that are coming here in 2032. And it's a BRT line, Niels, but it looks like it's light rail. I mean, the vehicles are fantastic with wheel covers and high roofs. And I mean, you wouldn't know that it wasn't on rail if you were just a casual observer.
Yeah, that's an amazing example, indeed. And indeed, I was 2 years ago. I was in Bogota, in Colombia. I was visiting Major Lopez back at the days. Also, was a great opportunity to see the Transmilenio system, the BRT system, which is one of the founding fathers, together with Curitiba, obviously in Brazil. Yeah, and it's amazing to see that type of BRT, but it's also completely different from other BRTs all over the world. The capacity, the intensity, the frequencies of the buses. So especially in our European context, we tend to talk more about buses with high level of service, which are not like the metro capacity, but more like a tram. So it's more a comparison between light rail. Exactly as you were saying, I think that in general, politicians and also users are a bit more fond of light rail vehicles than buses. But we see a huge improvement actually in the bus industry. The emissions are reduced. We have zero emission operations now. The look and feel of the buses has changed. And there's so much potential actually in the bus, which we often do not use for the reason that we think that the bus is always minor towards light rail. But I think quality wise, if you put serious effort and attention and also funding, by the way, into bus services, you can actually achieve a very high level of quality. And I think that's why I'm so excited about light rail and BRT. If we want to make public transport a serious choice for passengers, a serious alternative to the car, we need high level of quality. With just low quality services, no one will change modes from car to bus to public transport, isn't it?
And what are some of the justifications for the investment, the wider benefits of LRT and BRT?
Yeah, that's a good question, Paul. Thanks for that. That's actually one of the findings when we investigated all these light rail systems all over the world. We tried to find out the success factors, but we also tried to find out why are some of these systems not a success. So what went wrong? In general, we learn more from the failures than from the successes.
That makes sense.
And that's what we try to do with both the book about light rail, but also with the book about buses. And one of the things we found out is that the justification, the why of the project, was often not being made explicit. It was not completely clear why to invest so much money in a system that could bring people from A to B. That's obvious. That's the core business of public transport. But there's so much more potential of high-level public transport services. That's with regard to the environment. I think that's obvious, but also with regard to health, I think public transport in combination with active modes, walking and cycling, contributes to a much healthier lifestyle. And I think health issues are becoming a global problem, to be honest. So there's a lot of benefits in that area. Equity is also an issue. So all people in society being able to reach jobs, schools, hospitals, etc. Obviously, public transport could also play a big role there. And it's also about our cities and the quality of life, efficient space usage, public transport. I like the term mass transit from the US because it shows that public transport is able to move a lot of people with limited amount of space. If you compare it to the private car, the space efficiency of public transport is huge. And by saving space in your cities, you can actually put more green, more place to be, more parks, more place for children to play. And you can use your cities much more efficient to make it a more livable place instead of a fully city of asphalt and vehicles. So those are also benefits besides bringing people from A to B in a comfortable and fast manner. And that's maybe the major lesson of both books. If these objectives are important for you as a city or a region, in the end, that's up to the city and region what they find important. That's not up to us. But if they find it important, it's also important to make sure that you calculate and assess these benefits. And that's also what I do in my smart public transport lab. We try to develop methods to calculate the costs, but that's relatively easy in general to calculate the cost of transport systems. But what about the benefits? How can we calculate the benefits of increased accessibility, but also increased livability? I did my PhD back in the days about service reliability. So what is the value of a highly reliable system? That's a lot of value there. That's what we try to do with the books and try to show and help people in their actual projects to show the business case, the societal business case, because it comes with a lot of funding. That's obvious, both BRT and light rail. You should be crystal clear about the benefits.
Tell me about when is the appropriate time to try for BRT for a city versus LRT or a streetcar? When should you pick one versus the other? This is a question that a lot of cities are grappling with.
That's the most asked question after we published the book, Paul. There's no clear border, but there's some guidelines, and there's a lot of factors which are important, which I would like to explain to you. It also has to do with the history. Do you already have a real network or not, for instance? That's a very important one. Do you start from scratch? That's an important one. It's also about ridership. If you have huge amount of expected ridership, you can think of a metro or a light rail system. But there's this gray area in between light rail and BRT. And I think BRT is very potential. It's faster to be implemented. So if you want to plan for a rail system, that will take you much more years to build and to operate. So that's one of the benefits of a BRT system. The fast implementation. It's more flexible. You don't need to have dedicated lanes everywhere. Of course, you want to have a high level of dedicated infrastructure, but not per se everywhere, I think. And it's also feasible if ridership is not extremely high. You can still offer a high level of service, even if you don't have metro-like ridership numbers. So those are a couple of things to consider. And it's also important about the target group. Who are you thinking of? Who are you serving? Those are a couple of these factors who should be taken into account.
Could you describe or differentiate some between BRT and regular bus? What's the difference? What makes bus rapid transit BRT?
Yeah, what I think is important is, I mentioned it already a few times, is dedicated infrastructure.
Okay.
Because what you want to achieve with BRT is high, reliable services. So you want
Do you have to have a divided lane, or could you have it in with other traffic with just a bus only lane?
That depends on the situation, but you don't want to have mixed traffic. You don't want to be part of the congestion. So you need some priority at traffic junctions, traffic lights. You need have some separate lanes or segregated lanes, so you are not hindered by other traffic. Because besides reliability is key, speed is also it's bus rapid transit, obviously, and speed is a very important factor, both for the passengers. People like to be fast from A to B, but also that fast public transport is also cheap public transport, because the faster you go with your bus, the more cycles you can run with one bus. So the cheaper it gets to achieve a high frequency. So high speed, or actually limited stops. That could also be a
Yes,
way.
limited stops, right.
It's very important. So that's also one of the elements. Stopping distance is high with BRT. So you don't stop every 400 meters. You probably will stop every 1,000, or depending on, of course, on the urban planning. But stopping distance are longer, which has the benefit of having a higher operational speed,
Right.
but also stresses the need for proper first last mile connections. And that's why I'm such a big fan of bicycles integrated with public transport. Because if you have a proper bicycle infrastructure, services, and also parking facilities, people can actually take the bike to the stop, jump in a very comfortable, high-speed, reliable BRT, move quickly to the destination, and maybe for the last mile they can walk, or maybe can get some shared micromobility.
And what about frequency? Does BRT have a set defined headway?
But my rule of thumb would be for BRT systems is that the frequencies are such that you don't need to think about when should I go to the stop. You just go at random because you don't need to wait that long. And that's, of course, a personal decision. But we know from scientific research that people tend to go to the stop at random if the headways are about 10, 8 minutes. So let's say 6 to 8 times an hour at least. The more the better, obviously, but it obviously also comes with a price.
Yeah.
But you should not consider the timetable anymore. It's just you go there and you never wait too long, because no one likes waiting, isn't it? So if you have a bus frequency of 30 minutes or an hour, that could be feasible for specific lines or networks. But for BRT, you should always be high frequent.
Yeah. I was in a big city here in the US recently, out west, and they were building a BRT line while I was there. It took me out to view the construction. They had about 60% of dedicated roadway where it was most congested. And
Yes.
then and then it was shared. And then they were also doing a complete street project at the same time, widening the sidewalks from 5 feet to 10 feet on large portions of it, and adding in 40 new bus shelters, which were designed to keep the sun off your head. It was in a real hot city. So they were doing a whole mix of things. And that still, I think, is cheaper than building a light rail system, even with all those extra components.
Yeah, probably it is. And it's good you mentioned it, because it's always more than just building a bus line. It's the whole thing. If we want to make public transport attractive, everything should work. So the routes towards the stop should be safe and logical to walk or to cycle. But indeed, also the shelter should be, if you're just waiting in the sun or the wind, or in our country in the rain, no one will ever join your system. So also the shelter should be okay. The vehicle should be comfortable. Seating should be comfortable. And then obviously the network should also be well connected, frequent and high speed. So every part of the system should be high level. And that's often what we see if we talk about failed projects. Then sometimes only one of these elements. So maybe the line is well designed, but the shelter is poor, or the routes to and from the stops are poor. That's not a way to convince people to use public transport. So everything should be okay. And in that sense, sometimes I hear that BRT is a sort of low budget LRT. And indeed, it's cheaper, but I wouldn't say it's low budget. Quality comes with a price. If you want to have high quality public transport, you also should be willing to invest in infrastructure, in shelters, everything we discussed here.
And could it also be shown or potentially seen, BRT seen, as kind of a step to potentially having a light rail? So you put in BRT first, you can get it there quicker. You can modify routes if you need to find out what the best bus stops are. And then, over 5 to 10 years, maybe you move toward an LRT.
Yeah, that's indeed a very good way. Because we have all these models to predict ridership, etc. But we are never certain about the future. Let's be honest about it. So if it's not crystal clear that you will have a very high ridership justifying a rail connection, a BRT is a very good stepping solution, as you were saying. And we see that all over the world. And sometimes actually it's working so well that the rail is not needed anymore, that the bus itself is dealing with it. But sometimes we see that ridership goes up amazingly, and then the step towards a rail system is unavoidable. Because in the end, if we compare rail systems with bus systems, capacity of especially metro systems, but also light rail systems, is in general substantially higher than BRT systems.
Do you have some examples, some cities in the world that have done this, best practices, best cases?
Yeah, so there's a couple of places I like to refer to. If it's about public transport, I think you're traveling all over the world, Paul. I'm very jealous, by the way, with that regard. But I think Asia is a very good place where they really know how to plan for proper public transport. And what we also see in Singapore and Hong Kong and Tokyo is we see a mix. I often see that people are sort of fighting either you're pro rail or you're pro bus or pro metro or whatever. And I think we need to think more in the optimal mix of modes. I think we need to promote public transport, or even better, I think we need to promote sustainable traveling, including active modes, including shared mobility. And I think all these success cities, they are all acknowledging that, not fighting within public transport, but connecting. And also when I was visiting Mayor Lopez in Bogota, she was also very clear there. She had clear societal goals, what she wanted to achieve with her public transport, wider than only accessibility, also inclusiveness and equity and sustainability. And they have a great BRT system, but she was also being aware that only BRT is not going to solve all the issues. So she was also planning for a new metro line, not replacing the BRT, but actually strengthening the whole network. And that's my main message. Maybe it should not be a fight between LRT or BRT. It should be what's the best mode in connection with all the other ones, the optimal mix.
Yeah, I've been to the one in Singapore and see what they've done. Amazing work there. But I have not been to Hong Kong or to Japan and would love to go and see some of what they're done. A good buddy of mine just took a tour of the Asian countries and went to a lot of their transit systems, including Japan. And he sent me a lot of pictures and just fantastic. What do you think is next? What's coming next for the world when it comes to these type of modes?
Yeah, I think what the technology is which is already happening in your country and also in China is autonomous driving. And then we are not talking only about taxis, but I think this technology will also help to improve efficiency and effectiveness of public transport. So I think we will move into that era. We were talking about this already 10 years ago, and then people were a bit maybe overexcited. So then in 2020, all the cities will be filled with autonomous cars. That obviously did not happen. So let's not overestimate it. But on the other hand, I think that the self-driving technology can be a big game changer in operations of public transport, not only because of the funding of operations, obviously, but also if we look now at all the labor shortage which we are facing, especially after COVID, that's becoming a big issue. And there's also autonomous driving could be a big help. And of course, we already see autonomous metros all over the world. I was in Dubai 2 weeks ago. It's amazing, their metro.
Yeah, I've ridden that.
Without the driver.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I was there when they were doing what used to be called the World's Fair, but we went to the transportation place and we rode that autonomous thing out there. It was amazing. What's next for you, Niels? I got one suggestion. Drop that Dutch book into Chat GPT and put it out in English for us.
That's a very good recommendation. That's actually also at least part of what our plan is indeed, because we now have a Dutch book. That's nice for Dutch people, but there are not so many. And of course, we're happy to discuss with everyone in the world about what we wrote down. So I will keep you posted here, Paul. You will be the first one to send a copy to. So that's happening. And also in September, we are hosting a training again, like we did in Melbourne. Okay. But now we'll do it in Amsterdam, 22nd of September. We will give a international training for 4 days for young professionals, people who'd like to know more about public transport planning. So everyone is welcome to join us in Amsterdam.
Great. We'll drop a link to your website on our show notes if people are interested in coming there. I can tell you from seeing it firsthand, and you can watch it, by the way. You can see some of it. It was a short clip, maybe a minute, but on our Melbourne episode of Transit Unplugged TV. Thank you for your gracious time today, Niels. This has been a great conversation. I think it's important to drop back every now and then as we analyze what's next for our city when it comes to public transportation, especially how it all fits together and these two particular modes, light rail or streetcars, as sometimes known here, or trams, as it's known down in Australia, right? Yes. By the way, give me that. What's your take on all these names? It's all basically the same thing, right? It's just different nomenclatures.
Yeah, that's true. We like to call it a tram, but indeed there's multiple terms all around the world.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the catenary wire and it's powered up on top. That's the basic. That's what it is, right? I mean, if you were to describe what light rail is, how would you differentiate it from heavy rail?
What I like as a definition, because there's plenty of definitions about light rail. That's, by the way, also one of the challenges. What is light rail exactly?
Yeah, yes.
But I think one of the main thing is that light rail is combining the best of heavy rail, metro, and trams. So it's more flexible than heavy rail. You can actually also interact in cities. You can actually enter the city center. You can even pass walking paths or cycle paths. So it's actually well connected and integrated in your urban plan. And that's, of course, impossible with heavy rail. But whenever you're out of the city into the region, it actually acts more as a train. So you can have high-speed connections to connect all the suburbs and the regional towns to your inner center. That's also a system we see here in my neighborhood, which I worked when I was a strategic planner at the operator here. So we have a high-frequency system from the suburbs and the regional towns directly driving into the city center. You leave the tram and you enter the shops. And that's, I think, the power of light rail. Bringing people to where they really want to be.
Yeah. When I was administrator of the Maryland Transit Administration, we were building what's called the Purple Line. It's in Maryland, but it connects up to the Washington, D.C. Metro.
Yes. And
it goes right through. It's the largest P3 project in the nation at the time, $5 billion, more than that now, I think. But it was going right through the campus of University of Maryland, College Park. Just as you said, right through the middle of campus where students are walking, but it's slow enough where they feel like it would be safe, but it also connects up with other rail modes, the metro, which is more heavier rail. So that connection you're talking about, it's happening right now here in Maryland.
That's exactly indeed what I like. It's the hybrid function of operating as a tram here, and then another segment of the route it's operating as a metro or even a heavy rail. That's what I like.
Very interesting. Well, thanks again, Niels, for this, and let's stay in touch. I appreciate all the academic work you're doing, but also the practical nature of it.
Yeah, that's one of my drivers. I like to do scientific research, but always with a society in mind to make an impact in the real world, so to speak.
Very good. Thank you so much. And if you want to know more about Niels and the work he's doing, check our show notes. We'll have lots of links. Take care, brother.
Thank you for joining this edition of the Transit Unplugged podcast, featuring Niels van Oort, co-director, Smart Public Transport Lab, Delft University of Technology. Here is a word from Julie Gates.
My name is Julie Gates. I'm the executive producer of the podcast, and I want to thank you for listening to this show. And if you're listening right now, I have a favor to ask of you. Would you please give us your feedback about the Transit Unplugged podcast? We're running a survey right now to help us make decisions on what to do with the show moving forward. So if there's anything you absolutely love about the podcast, please let us know. And if there's anything that makes you want to hit your head against the wall, we need to know that too. It's really important to us to deliver the show you want to hear week after week. And as time evolves, the show needs to evolve. We can only evolve with your help. So please head over to transitunplugged.com/survey. It's completely anonymous, and your feedback will help us make our show better week after week. You can find the survey at transitunplugged.com/survey. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.